Hi gang, Rob here. It is the evening of 15 November 2019, coming to you this evening with a review if you will, of an accessory for a pocket knife from Applied Weapons Technologies, AWT, maker of extremely nicely machined aftermarket scales for some of your favorite knives. And recently they've released their Benchmade Bugout scales. You're looking at the pair that Shane sent me in OD green hard anodized aluminum. Absolutely beautiful. I'm going to install these on this knife. Yeah, this is my green and gray S30V Bugout. Now, I ran this with the factory scales for a little bit after I got it, and then I had a consigned knife that came to me with these rock scale design titanium scales, and frankly I just didn't like the way it played with the colors. So when Shane contacted me and asked me if I'd like to try out a set of his new aluminum scales, I was happy to oblige, so we're going to do that today. Sort of go over with you what comes in the package. First of all, and kind of important to me, is this card. Shane introduces himself as the owner of the company, gives you a phone number, website, straight to the info page if you'd like, and on the front of the card is Shane's Christian testimony. On the back of the card, a quote from Billy Graham at the top, and then a short 3-step plan of salvation. Pretty cool. And a quote from George Washington at the bottom. Also in the bag, your scales are going to ship in this Ziploc poly bag wrapped neatly in some bubble wrap, and then you're going to get some instructions. These instructions indicate that this may have been a problem in the past. Talks about how AWT is not responsible for stripped threads. Probably not going to be an issue with the Bugout kit because it uses all Benchmade hardware. And then you're going to also get this sticker in the baggie. So factory screws, factory standoffs, only through holes in the AWT product. So we're not threading anything into the aluminum, which I think is a good thing. Before I put the knife together, just kind of wanted to show you a comparison of these scales, the AWT scales, with the factory scales and the rock scale products. So I'm going to do this using one at a time. Because they're pretty much the same. The shape, the envelope is very, very similar to the factory scale. There's a very slight crown to the factory scale that's not present on either the AWT or the rock scale product. And then, of course, FRN versus hard anodized aluminum. Notice the deeply milled pockets in the AWT scale for lightness. Let's face it, guys, the Bugout is not a knife we buy for ultimate strength. And they've got their logo, their maker's mark, milled into that pocket. I don't know if you can see it. Pretty cool. And then we'll look at this next to a rock scale example. Pretty similar milling pattern, except there's a kind of a gusset across the middle of that large pocket on the rock scale product. Interesting. Don't know, I'm not that familiar with this scale and its options, but it looks like the lanyard hole could be there or not. I'm not sure if you can order that both ways. It's there on the AWT. Correct. I must correct myself. Pocket clip screws do go into the aluminum. They are not through holes. Those are threaded. So I know you all want to know this. Factory versus AWT versus rock scale. How do you think our weight lines up? Here's your answer. 1/2 ounce for the set of factory scales. 9/10 of an ounce for the AWT scale set. 1.2 for the titanium rock scale. So kind of right in the middle is going to be your AWT scale set. There is one little detail that neither the factory scales nor the rock scales have, this gentle chamfer where your fingers go. We'll see how comfortable that ends up being. I think it might be. All right, I'm going to attempt to assemble this knife on camera. We will start with our mechanism, which is going to sit right there in that pocket, and it's going to be held in with 2 screws. This is really not work I love doing in front of the camera or behind the camera, working through the camera. Just gently attach that. Now we'll set our standoffs in. And those are D-shaped bosses or shoulders on the standoffs, and they correspond quite well with the AWT scales. I feel so clumsy with this camera between me and my work. Now, you guys may differ, but on any screw that I am applying until it's tight, I really prefer not to use thread locker. Well-machined threads kind of do their job without thread locker. I do use it, of course, on pivots because those are adjustable. That screw's never home pulling tight against the threads. So that's why we use thread locker on pivots. And thread locker kind of causes as many problems as it solves on screws that are applied tightly. Okay, now I've got to put something in there to spread my internal parts so I can get that other screw in. I don't know if I can show you this, but I've got one side of the mechanism screwed to the scale and the other side's kind of hanging out in the middle. So I'm going to come in here with a squashed Q-tip to kind of hold that out against the frame. See if that'll work. I think it shall. There we go. I just made up that little hack as we're sitting here talking. Okay. Did it work? You betcha. Alright. So far, everything is matching up nicely. Just make sure everything's tight. All this hardware can be assembled tightly. Okay. Now what we got to do is put our blade in. And you guys have seen I hope you have, my care and maintenance of an axis lock video. It's kind of an interesting little process we got to go through. I got to decide which side I want. I guess I'll set it up the factory way. Where's our D? Our D is at the top of the frame. So I'm going to put that pivot so it's just barely poking through. Figure out which side of my washer I want. Oh, the things you try to do while we're doing live video. I will say this, the pivot is a tad loose in the hole. I got a little oil on here. Because the washers are so small, and the proximity from the edge of the scale to the pivot hole is kind of long, I had to sort of stick a washer in. Well, that didn't work out too well with me and the camera, but so I got a washer in, and I think you can see the pivot barely protruding. Now I'm going to try to put the blade in, and I hope I've left enough room. Pull that out just a hair to slide the blade between the opposite side scale and the top of the pivot. There we go. Now pull the axis bar back, line the hole up, push the pivot barely through the blade hole. Now I'm going to need a little help with a little card or something. What can I find? Gonna need something about as thick as the washer. Well, there we go. We'll use Shane's card. Again, a little oil. Very little. Use the corner of this card to push my washer in. Come on, honey. I've got the hole just barely exposed. I use a little drill bit. Once I get a hole exposed, to pull that washer to the center. Try not to slip off the edge of it and mar it. And there we go. Once you get it in the center, you just push the pivot through. All right. You know the rest. I know you do. Now it's time for the pivot. And here's how I do this. A little rubbing alcohol on a paper towel. Threads in my fingers. Whoops, wrong Torx bit. Just spin it around in the alcohol. Get the old thread locker off of there. Find a dry section. Wipe her off. Okay. This is red bottle or red tube, but blue Loctite. A barely adequate amount of Loctite, which is what you want. And run that down kind of snug, and then we'll get it close. Whoops. All right, notice there's a couple fasteners not in yet. What I like to do is get my action where I want it. Needs to be a little tighter. I got a little bit of side play. Without that stop pin hardware in, because I don't like my stop pin, just in case it was machined a little short, I don't like my stop pin to affect my action. So what I'll do, I get my action right before I put the screws in the ends of the stop pin, and then I know where that's at. Now I'm going to attach those screws tight and see where I am, and then if I'm pinching the blade, I'm going to take them back out and apply Loctite and put them in just a hair loose. Now if that stop pin is shouldered to the correct length, and it is, okay, I'm not going to need to worry about it. I can have those assembled dead tight. I get perfect action. I got no side play. And how my centering come out? Well, look at that. That sucker's dead down the middle, just like it was with the factory scales and the rock scales. So good machining on both sets. I'm going to clean this little package up. I've got oily fingerprints all over it, and then we'll play with it a little bit on camera and get a feel for it and let you know what I think. Be right back. Alrighty then. There we go. And how about those chamfers in the finger area? Yeah, they work. Really nice. I like it. And I think that OD goes really well with the gray chromium nitride blade finish and clip and the yellow anodized aluminum standoffs and thumb studs. I did put the pocket clip on while I was off camera, as well as cleaning up the knife a little bit. One thing to note, as with other AWT products, that hard anodized coating is in those threads. So be very gingerly getting those screws started. You might even want to use a drop of oil to chase them the first time that you screw into that hard anodized coating, because that coating is going to be a lot harder than the aluminum threads themselves. And they can take those threads right off those little screws sometimes. So be advised of that. Oh, looks like I had a little oil on my finger. All in all, though, a really, really handsome product. Super well machined. Jimping on the spine doesn't correspond perfectly with the jimping on the liners, but it doesn't really need to. It's pretty effective, better than factory jimping from Benchmade. Handsome, well made, a lot stiffer than a standard Bugout mechanism or handle. Need to give that screw just a little tiny turn for blade play. There we go. So pricing on the Applied Weapons Technologies hard anodized aluminum scales for the Bugout, $79.95, I believe, if you go to their website, and it will be linked in the description under the video. How does that compare with the main competitor? $96 for the titanium plain rock scale. Now, these scales aren't very old, and I just want you to look. If you think the titanium is going to be a more durable finish than the aluminum, I think not. I don't know if Rock Scale Designs uses some kind of a coating or an anode treatment over the bead blast. They seem a little dark for natural titanium, but it doesn't wear very well. That's not a lot of use. That's just my hand slipping down beside it in my pocket. So I don't carry keys in that pocket or anything. So not super durable. I have a feeling, I don't know this, just from carrying mini grip AWT scales, I didn't have much of that at all. You kind of have to drop this stuff to put a a chip in it. That hard anodized coating is really, really good. Very similar to a cold steel Code 4 handle in how it wears. And they have softened the corners. Those are, I believe they're radius, not chamfered. Shane, if you're watching, weigh in and tell us for sure. But much nicer in how they broke those corners than in the mini grip scales, the first stuff they made. So, nice job. $16 cheaper than the Rock Scale Titanium in a variety of colors. Check out the website to see what's available. I kind of like them. Good job, Shane. Good job, brother. And thank you for being open about your Christian faith in your product materials. It's a really, really good thing. I appreciate you, brother. And great job on these Bugout scales. Love them. That's all for this one, my friends. Grace to you and peace from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. Remember, the word is sharp.